Hello, my name is Dani Ondreka, coming to you from Kettering Health's Community Outreach Department. We're here today to talk about finding your balance, especially as you get older, how to remain confident and safe with your movement as you age. So as you age, your body is changing. You wouldn't expect a car not to change after driving it for 50 to 60 years, even if you treat it very well. So when we think about our body, we know that as we're aging, certain processes are going to become a little bit different, and that's okay. One of the biggest things that changes our eyesight and our hearing. We typically do also see changes in our awareness. Our proprioception is a big indicator of a change in awareness here. Proprioception refers to your body's idea of where your body exists in space. If I were to stick my hand out in front of me and I were to close my eyes, my brain is giving me a picture of where my hand is at without me having to look at where it is in space. So as we age, some of those receptors maybe change or become a little bit less sensitive, and that can be a big reason why our balance changes. Our brain just no longer has as clear of a picture of where we exist in space. We can also see a lot of changes in our musculature, whether we have weakness or pain due to weakness, which is one of the big reasons it's important to stay strong as we age. So if we're going to talk about balance, we also need to talk about falls. They do unfortunately happen. Maybe a lot more than you might think. More than a third of adults over the age of 65 are going to fall each year. 20 to 30% of that population will sustain a few injuries. The majority of fractures in older adults are due to falls, and the majority of hospitalizations due to injury are because of falls as well. So we know they do happen. It's not a reason to be afraid of them, but they are prevalent, and I'm sure either you or someone you know has experienced a fall in their lifetime. So that's one of the major reasons we are afraid of falling. Maybe we've heard about a friend who has fallen. Maybe we've had a personal experience ourselves. Whether we were injured or not, that can cultivate some fear of falling. There's a lot of what ifs that come along with that, a lot of worries. If we're worried about falling, we could be considering, if I try this new activity, what if this happens? What if I fall? What if I injure myself? It makes us a little bit less likely to try that activity. Maybe we also have a medical reason to have a fear of falling, whether we have a specific condition that we're working through, or our condition might be made worse by us falling. We can also get into a little bit of a cycle once we have this fear of doing particular activities. Maybe we've experienced a fall doing them and we're no longer comfortable doing that activity anymore. Or maybe we're worried about trying something new because we have that fear of falling. When we stop trying to perform those activities, we're getting worse at them. If we're not cultivating those skills, we're not working towards doing that activity, we're just not going to be as good at it. That makes us want to do it even less. So there's where we see that self-fulfilling prophecy, where if we believe we can't do something, we won't. So we really need a mindset shift here. If we start to believe that we can do something in any kind of capacity, whether it is modified or not, then we will do it. We just have to have that belief. So let's talk about a few fall prevention strategies. Number one is trying to stay active as much as possible. Keeping your muscles strong, keeping them flexible is one of the number one things that you can control that will help to prevent you from falling. Especially keeping your lower body muscles strong is going to be incredibly important when it comes to balance and falls. It's also important to have your eyes and your hearing tested regularly, especially if you go to your doctor every year for your annual checkup, as we all should. If you notice that you have experienced any changes, be sure to tell your doctor and they can check to see if anything else might be going on. Also check the side effects of your medications, especially if they have changed recently, or you're feeling anything that seems to be out of the ordinary. You can talk with your doctor and your pharmacist to make sure that you are taking the dosages that you need and you're not having any interactions that might be harmful to you. Getting enough sleep is also incredibly important. Our brain is not functioning on all cylinders when we don't get enough sleep, and it definitely affects our ability to pay attention to our surroundings. So making sure that we take that time to relax and implement good sleep strategies can help us in our fall prevention. We also want to make sure that we're limiting our alcohol intake during the week. As with some of our other prevention strategies, we want to make sure that our awareness is in tip-top shape So consuming copious amounts of alcohol can impair that, leading to a possible loss of balance or a fall. So let's talk about a few more specific fall prevention strategies. If we're coming up from a seated position, we want to make sure that we take our time standing up. Stand up slowly. Pay attention to your surroundings. If we use an assistive device like a walker or a cane, don't be afraid to use it. There's nothing embarrassing about using that device, especially if it helps you get from point A to point B. Make sure to take care on any surfaces you know are going to be unstable or a little bit slick. If there are wet floor signs out at your local grocery store, or you're walking through grass or sand as opposed to on a sidewalk, take extra care, take a little bit of extra time, and make sure you can find sure footing. We also want to make sure that we're wearing non-skid shoes and that the tread has not worn away. We want to feel that support for your feet so that you're able to adequately feel the ground as you're walking, and your shoes aren't going to slide on any possible slick surfaces that you might encounter. Keep your pathways well lit. If you get up in the middle of the night at home, perhaps think about using some night lights in your hallway to make sure that you can see the floor and you can see where you're going. Always tell your doctor if you've had a fall, even if you haven't gotten hurt. If something has changed, whether to do with your medications, your hearing, your vision, your proprioception, your doctor needs to be aware of any issues so that they can help to look for the source of the problem. The number one reason we fall is because we're distracted. So pay attention to your surroundings. Take time when you're moving. Look where you're going. These things sound so small and so simple, but if we just remove that simple piece of distraction, you'll find that you're going to have a lot less falls. So let's talk about what to do if you fall. We know they do happen. A large percentage of the population has experienced them. So we need to be ready for this encounter if it does actually happen, right? So first thing you should do is remain calm. If you do fall, we got to take the time to assess our surroundings, take a few breaths, don't panic, and just remain still for a moment. Take inventory of your situation. Are you hurt? Are you feeling lightheaded or dizzy? Decide if it's safe to try to get up in this current environment. If you decide that it is a safe environment for you to try to stand up, here are a few things that you can put into practice to take your time and take a little bit of care in standing up. First, you're going to take your time rolling onto your side. Be slow, be gentle. We're still looking to take inventory here to make sure that we don't have any injuries, no broken bones, and taking our time rolling onto our side will help us to do that. We also want to make sure as we move through these different positions, we're not finding any dizziness, any lightheadedness that would cause us to fall again back down onto the floor. From this side lying position, you're going to slowly roll over to your hands and your knees. Again, taking your time, taking stock of your situation. If there is a surface nearby, like a chair or a stool, perhaps an ottoman that you can get your hands onto, crawl over to that surface, place your hands flat upon it, and we'll use that surface to try to stand up slowly. You want to take 1 foot up at a time. So coming to your knees, using that surface or a wall if it's available to you, slowly rise to 1 foot and then to the other, pushing yourself up with your hands. As always, taking our time right on our way up, making sure we're not feeling dizzy or lightheaded. We want to stay away from any secondary falls. If you decide that in that environment you cannot get up safely, it's important to stay where you are, call for help, or call 911. If you do use another kind of emergency or assistive device, like a life alert, or you carry a phone with you, those are very, very important devices to know you have on you and to utilize if you do find yourself in an emergency where you cannot get up. Try to get in a comfortable position until help does arrive, paying attention to any possible injuries, any changes in your symptoms while you wait for them to come. So we know that falls happen, so we want to make sure we have some strategies to also fall safely. The number one reason we break bones as an older adult is due to falls, and that can severely limit us in our mobility as we age. So if we do find ourselves in a moment where we are falling, we want to try to dissipate that risk as much as we possibly can. So let's talk about if we're falling backwards. We want to try to roll out of any possible fall as much as possible, just to push that force away from our body so it's not traveling up through our skeleton quite as much. If we are going to fall backwards, it's important to think about trying to bend our knees and roll out of the fall as much as possible. So we're not hitting just one specific spot, either on our bum, on our back, or our head, but we try to roll through. It's also important to tuck our chin down towards our collarbone. We want to make sure that we're keeping the back of our head safe from any possible injuries, and we don't want it to smack on the floor. So tuck that chin down towards your collarbone and keep it there. Work as hard as you can to almost curl into like a little ball, which also will help us to roll out of that fall and dissipate that pressure. We can also use an arm, if you do have a free arm, to smack the floor as we fall down. That momentum helps our body to stay a little bit more lifted, so we have less force, again, pushing down into the ground. If we're falling forward, the most important portion here is to think about protecting our face. So if you think about creating a triangle with your forearms, you're going to bring your fists towards each other here in the center, making the top of the triangle. And then we just fly our elbows out to the sides here. We still want to always imagine that we're rolling our weight through our body. So we don't want to smack our elbows or our hands directly down on the floor. But if we start to fall forward, get those hands up in front of your face. Instead of pushing out with our hands so that all that force is just translated through our palm, we can roll through our forearms instead. Again, trying to keep the head lifted so that we don't smack it down on the floor. We have a couple options if we find ourselves falling to the side. If you feel you can rotate, you are more than welcome to try to rotate more towards a backwards fall or a forwards fall, whichever you feel a little bit more comfortable trying to roll through. You can also try to roll through that fall from a side position. You're going to think about it just as you would a backwards roll, bending the knees and trying to roll through that fall just to the side instead. Whichever arm is closer to the floor, you're going to try to smack the ground. Again, finding that momentum so that that body tries to stay lifted instead of hitting the floor with all the force you have. So give it a nice hard smack. A few bruises are definitely worth it as opposed to broken bones. At the end of the day, you're in control. You know your body better than anybody else does. You know when things have changed, when you need to make adjustments, and when you just don't feel quite right. So pay attention to the signals that your body is giving you. It'll give you much stronger self-awareness and more confidence to stay moving and to stay healthy as you age. Thanks for joining us today. Have a safe and balanced day.